One, two, one, two. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Is there anybody out there? Hello. Okay, that's a little bit better. We're about to start our culture panel, so if you'd like to, please come and take a seat. I've got some really amazing and inspiring people on the stage with me right now. I'm going to introduce to you who come from the world of TV, media, broadcast, social media, sport, entrepreneurship. There's a lot going on. So please make sure you are watching and get ready to start. My name is Jane McGregor and I'm your host today. I am a presenter and a voiceover artist, currently working at Channel 4 at Represent Radio, doing a lot of things. One of the voices on your tellies. You might have heard me, so now you can put a face to the name. Now this panel is about culture, finding out what culture means to these guys. You may leave here feeling a little bit inspired, you may leave here learning something new, or you may leave here learning about things you didn't know about the industry, because all of these guys have got some top tier experience. So let's start with some introductions and start with the industry team.
Hi, my name is Carlos.
I'm Cream. I'm Shan.
Hello, I'm Devoshka and I'm a producer. Sorry, I'm Devoshka, I'm a director on the industry.
Hello guys, I'm Rich and I'm the founder of the industry.
So please tell me, for those who don't know, what is industry?
So the industry is a reality TV show that we're currently doing based on Black British experience within the industry. So that would be whether like the entertainment industry. So we want to do like a day in the life to show everybody what it really takes and what it is we do.
And have you guys already started filming?
We're currently in production.
That's really exciting. So that's definitely something that you guys need to keep an eye out for. I'm going to be delving into all of the research you're doing behind it and all the different experiences you're going to be showcasing. Now, on this side, please, can you give me a massive introduction, Franklin, King of Trainers?
Hi, my name is Franklin, aka the King of Trainers. I'm I don't know, a culture, I guess. I'm also the Averex European brand manager. So anytime you see Averex, just think of King of Trainers.
Hi, my name's called Shivs. I'm a director of an events and management company. We do 360 kind of immersive experiences for brands as well as artists and other talent.
I'm Radio Raheem. I'm a sports broadcaster, journalist. I also produce comedy and documentaries. By the way, am very interested in this industry because I'm finding the industry on this side of the pond. You may be able to tell I'm an American, but I've been working here for over 10 years and now I've moved over. And I'm finding this industry very different than the industry back in the States, which I'm sure we'll get around to later.
And Epic Jones, entertaining people, increasing knowledge, which is the EPIK, and producer, writer, academic scholar. And I mean, my journey keeps on taking me to different places. So as we speak, you'll see how culture has been a part of that and how culture has helped to shape that.
Also, did you just catch that? I need my own acronym. Do it one more time.
Entertaining people, increasing knowledge, Epic.
Love that for you. Please, can you give my panel a massive round of applause? We're discussing culture today, so it's only right that I find out exactly what culture means to you. So can you give me a brief summary about the culture that you kind of work in, the culture that you live in, and how that impacts the work you do?
Me, the culture is more about a group of people sticking together. For the industry now, what we're trying to do is just show the culture of ours and the black excellence in the UK. How we can go around, show a day-to-day life, influencers, artists, producers, DJs. That's what it was.
I think for me, the culture is a community of people, a community of artists coming together and showcasing their talent. Yeah.
And what about in your world? What does culture mean to you?
Yeah, culture means everything, man. It's the foundation. It's the spirit. Culture means everything to me. We won't be here without culture. British culture. I've got Ghanaian descent, West African culture, so culture is everything to me.
For me, culture is extremely important in what I do because I feel that it gets lost a lot and it gets taken by the wrong people and changed in the wrong way. So it's like when people come from different backgrounds, it's almost like how do we show that in the best light and give people an experience that's memorable so that people understand what the culture is, where other individuals come from.
What I'm finding is that culture is more global than I thought of it when I was young and living in one country and staying in one part of the world. As I traveled and had the opportunity to speak to people in sport and entertainment and music and comedy, that the way that we look at the world, what experiences our parents have had, and the way that the world has gotten so much smaller with the internet and influences us, and we are able to influence it. Well, that's a global culture. I think it is a lot less regional than it used to be, and right now we're at an explosion of it. The fact that I'm sitting on this panel with all these different kind of people I'm going to learn about today, the panel before this, I don't know that this kind of conversation that will go out around the world was possible even 20, 30 years ago. So now culture is what we make it, and what we make it is what the world's going to be, not just our neighborhoods.
When I think of culture, so a community would be collective of people that have either share a common space or interests, and the culture is the way that they connect and why they do the things they do and how they do it, and that's what makes it culture.
It's really interesting to hear that we all have different definitions and variations, but how it all comes back to community and how it makes people feel and how that ties in with our heritage. I want to start from a TV perspective, diving into the industry's background. How do you feel Black British culture is portrayed currently in TV? You know, we have a lot of viral shows right now. Supercell is popping off. Before that, we had the likes of Top Boy. We had the likes of Brian Lane. There's loads of different variations, but what have you seen firsthand?
So I'm going to answer just from my perspective, and the reason why I wanted to get involved in the industry in the first place is I feel like with Black British culture, it's very different from like Black American culture, for example. We all come from different backgrounds. Like you've got Jamaicans, you've got Nigerians, you've got Africans just in general, right? So our culture is kind of like mixed, and somehow I feel like in the reality TV industry, it's not portrayed. We don't really see that side of like say an artist going home and eating with his parents and like the kind of different foods that they eat and like different musics that they listen to and how their parents raised them and stuff. So this is kind of what we want to portray in the industry and just like to shine a light on like different artists or different people from the industry that don't really get a chance. Like a lot of times in UK television, for example, Black people are like tokens. There's not really Black people that have actually really shone through reality television in the UK. So that's what we're trying to put out there.
I love that you guys are changing the narrative and you're doing that in a way that's authentic. I feel like as a Black Brit, we hold on to our culture very tightly, and this is quite different in America. You know, we don't define ourselves as just African American. We really lean forward with our culture and our upbringing. So you'll know exactly where you're from, you'll know what tribe you're from, you'll know what you're celebrating. A lot of that boils down to things like slavery and having our documentation and knowing our backgrounds and being able to trace that back. With reality TV, you're right, there is a lot of tokenism, and usually you have, you know, the one Black friend, or you have, you know, a storyline that often involves, you know, like drugs and knife crime, but there's so much more to that in the creative industry. And I feel like it's going to be exciting to see when your show airs, because there's going to be different pockets. Like, can you imagine seeing your favourite music artists and celebrities going home and not, you know, having Nobu takeaway? They're actually eating their cultural and traditional dishes, and they take pride in that, because sometimes showcasing that wasn't always cool growing up back in school, being proud of where you're from. Whereas now I feel like we really adopt that as a culture, and we're really proud to showcase, you know, we're making our own hall parties, we're doing our own traditions, and we're changing the narrative a bit. So it's exciting. Now go, sorry.
Sorry, no, just being the American on the panel, you both referenced that. And what's interesting is I made a documentary called The Last Station about Brixton, which I've moved to in the last year. Now, I've been coming to England for over a decade, covering sports, doing journalism, and I enjoy London, but I didn't really discover Brixton until like 3 years ago. I was going for the porridge and then headed back to the West End, right? But then I started to stay over and learn the people. And as it grew on me, I was trying to figure out what it was that made me love this place. And that it reminded me so much of Oakland, California, which is where I was born and raised, that now it's been so gentrified and so diluted that it doesn't really exist anymore. The place that I once like grew up and understood. And when I talk to people in Brixton about that, they're like, "Oh, this place is gentrified too. And we've lost so much. It's not existing here." And what it inspired in me was to create this documentary because I was like, I know what it's like when it's really gone. I know what it's like when you have no connection anymore to your heritage or your roots, or the thing that makes you feel at home doesn't exist. And what you guys still have, the kind of different individual places that you come from within this collective experience you're having in England, is something that, yes, Black Americans like would kill for. And I wanted to express, really, it was a love letter to the British Black people all over the South and North, but really to understand how much you still have and how valuable it is to those of us who don't have that. Like, I saw Brixton as a cultural explosion. I didn't see anything
That's so
missing from it
crazy.
at
We
all.
probably take that for granted because we're so used to it. For those who are with us in the audience, have you had your areas gentrified? Little show of hands. Has anyone come from an area that's been completely gentrified? Whereabouts? Shout to me. Brixton. Anywhere else? Brockley. Anywhere else? Peckham.
Hey,
Canning Town. See, there's a lot of gentrification going on, but from an outside perspective, someone who's not from this country, they still see it as a culture explosion. Interesting. Now, I want to talk about culture from an immersive, social, and human perspective. You guys, this is your bag. You do these 360 activations that really want to gentrify our culture, but you bring it back to the authenticity. And as a cultural commentator, you work from a brand perspective and from a personal perspective. So can you shed a light for me on how culture kind of interacts with your day to day and how you bring it back to your roots?
Thank you. So I'll just give you some background. So I helped relaunch Avrex, right? And it was licensed by a bigger brand. You know, I'm not going to mention the name. I'm not trying to shame anyone. But what they didn't understand is how much a brand like Avrex meant to the people, right? So I opened a pop up, which was supposed to be a 3 month project. Um, and I said, don't worry, you don't understand how precious this brand is to the people. So in the first 4 days, I generated all the 3 months projections in the first 4 days, you know, and they just were blown away because they didn't understand the culture of the brand. Um, I also said that you have to go back to the brand. I mean, I'm an old man. I'm probably the oldest person on this panel. I bought my Avex jacket 28 years ago. Yeah, my first Avex jacket 28 years ago. So I said we have to go back to the people that wore the jackets, So Solid, Mega Man and stuff. And when they were giving it to, I'm not going to say that, Love Island people, which is cool. I mean, I get it if they want a new audience. But when I seeded the jacket to Mega Man and he wore it in the Stormzy video, we had the white Avery, everyone saw that. And that generated more return than anything they ever did. Yeah. So this is the essence of understanding culture. You have to understand culture. You have to understand the key pinpoints of what it means. And from a fashion perspective, you know, like you have to know how to cross over, working with the right people, putting in the right places, and making sure that you're touching the key touch points, or else you'll just be, how do I say, a culture vulture thing. Yeah.
Sorry, with me, it's been a battle. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's literally been a battle because there's a miscommunication of people not understanding things. And I've experienced that same thing that Franklin's saying. Like, I've even called Franklin, I'm like, bro, I need a hookup for gets, for nines, like various different people. And it's like, they weren't getting it. And we had to almost like come together and fight to get those things over. Like, so for me, it was like, one of my biggest and longest battles was I felt like I worked with Havana Club. And now when you look at Havana Club in the UK, it's to go to rum for the black community. And we spent 7 years like building that. And initially when they came into the UK, it was funny because the actual director and even though it's a Cuban rum, it's owned by a French company. So when you start looking into culture and you look into the UK culture in comparison to European black culture, Spanish black culture, it's all different. So when you come into the UK, you got to understand the grassroots in the UK. Once you understand the grassroots in the UK, you're then able to sell like in the best way. And even with me, like we go over to Paris, we do things in Paris. We went over to Vienna. We saw how Vienna was done completely different. How like so I'm having to learn black culture and in different countries. So it's like I'm Guyanese. So my descendants is like my family. My grandmother was one of 14, and the 14 siblings moved from to the UK, to some stayed in Guyana, and then some went to America. So a lot of my childhood I spent in the States. So I understand your background as well. So because of being able to be well traveled at a young age, I was able to almost understand like each culture in each country. We need to have a good understanding of that to be able to project what we need to achieve for the black culture in these different countries. Like for me, the UK is so impactful. I feel like America's even looking at the UK now. I remember when I was a kid and I was in America and I'm playing garage or like they were laughing at me. They're like, "What's this? Why are they rapping so fast?" Do you get it? They said, "Slow it down." They didn't understand anything that we were saying. But now they're looking in the UK for like inspiration. When you look at artists like Pop Smoke, if it wasn't for Pop Smoke coming into the UK and and doing stuff in the UK culture, he would have never blown. The US, New York didn't understand him. They didn't rate it. But it's like the more and more that I've seen that we've been able to be impactful, the more and more I want to spread the word and basically show what the real UK culture is before it's lost and it's gentrified and it's not what it used to be. So it's extremely important for me. I hope I answered your question, you know. Did I answer your question? Ah, sorry. So yeah, we've done a lot, and we're still doing a lot, and it is extremely important.
Not only did you answer the question, you gave us loads of context and some great insight to you. Now, DJ Epic, from a music perspective, the UK seems to be a melting pot for culture, whether that's, the rise in Amapiano that we've seen, the rise in, clashes now. You see, they had Steph London and Jada Kingdom, and that was kind of the US Jamaican culture, like coming forward. We've got Carnival literally this weekend, where it's going to be another melting pot. So, can you give your perspective on how you see culture in the UK, especially Black British culture, and where we stand?
Well, you just need to think about the last thing you mentioned, which was Notting Hill Carnival. There is no festival bigger in the whole of Europe than Notting Hill Carnival, and that shows you how massive our culture, the British culture, the Caribbean culture, the African culture, just culture in a whole, in terms of the music, the food, the clothing, the colors. Um, I mean, traditionally, you ask or you walk around Britain, most of the times it will seem like to some people it's gloomy. They're in dark clothing. But at Notting Hill Carnival, you're going to see colors. When you talk about the music and how it's been shaping as well, I mean, I'll bring somewhat sport into it as well. Um, when you check Olympics and you check most of who are performing, and you look at some of the British athletes that are performing, and you look at some of even the American athletes, and you see that a lot of them have somewhat of a bedrock from the Caribbean or America, or there's somewhat been influenced by British culture. You looked at Usain Bolt when he was running in the UK, it felt like a second home because of the cultural element in terms of how much of the diasporas are here. And that competitiveness that you get from the Caribbean, wanting to be the best individuals and such, it has marinated into British culture, which you'll see with the MCs and the rappers wanting to be the best, talking about representing their ends until eventually they also learn the camaraderie of actually coming together collectively. Because you see Stormzy done a track where he was able to call on about 40 or 50 other members within the industry in his music video to feature because he learned the element. Yeah, it's about competition. Our culture is about trying to be the best. But then, if we want to be bigger, if we want our brand to excel and go further, it's about collectively supporting each other and showing each other that we. Because look, one finger, two finger can do a lot. But you see, when you bring them all together, you get a fist, and that's what British culture has kind of shown, and all the artists that have been involved in it, and all the people that are involved behind the scenes. Because if you think about an event, and she will know as well as an event director, um, the person that does the hair is as important as the person with the jerk pan outside. It's as important as the security, as important as the person that cleans the floor and is the bathroom attendant. All those elements come together, which is the community, and it's the culture, and it's all for a common goal. And that's what the British culture does have. And they've managed to get that. And it took them a while to get there. And that's why now everyone's coming here to get something out of it.
Very, very true. My next question is, do you feel the pressures of black excellence within your industry? And for those who may not know what that is, it's kind of a status thing where we don't only have to work harder as black people due to the systematic kind of racism and oppression in this country, but we also have the standard of excellence that we've had to reach. And that does come back from, you know, parents, grandparents, especially migrating over to the UK and having to attain higher goals. But it's crazy how that rolls down the generations and can pour into our industry. And now we've set it as this great standard. And I was seeing a lot of debates about, you know, how about we have like mediocrity? How about we don't always strive for excellence? And then I've seen other sides where, you know, if we don't strive for excellence, what are we striving for? Industry team, please can you open up the floor?
So personally for me, I think that's something that I really struggle with because you do want to like present black excellence to the world and yourself on a higher standard. Like we can do just as good as them, even better type of vibe. But then at the same time, I want to stay authentic to myself. Like why do I have to go in the boardroom and put on and do the comedian when this is who I am? They don't do that when they go in the room. Why do we need to? So I do think it's very something much like I struggle with, like trying to get the balance. But for me, I would rather go into the room and be myself and be accepted in that part and then push for what I see as excellence rather than what society sees as excellence.
That's a really beautiful way of putting it. And in reality TV, often we see these shows and there will only be, you know, a token black person, or maybe we'll have maybe two or three. And it feels like the pressure of the nation is on them because they're representing black people as a whole, when that's not true. But unfortunately, shows are broadcast in places where there are different mixtures of populations, and that might be the only representation they see. How do you feel like that's kind of affecting your production process and things you're thinking about?
So I feel like it's actually pushing us forward in regards to like we want to set a kind of standard. There's really nothing out there that represents the industry. We're trying to put different representations of different black characteristics on the TV. So that's something that really drives us.
What about you guys? Black excellence. Do you feel the pressures in your fields?
Okay, so I'm a journalist, and that is considered, certainly in America, a very white industry. Racism isn't what kept me out of mainstream journalism early because I started in high school. So I was like 16 and I had a radio show on my high school campus because I was ambitious, because I was innovative. I was at a performing arts high school, so that was one part of it. But we had a radio station on campus that was dormant until I petitioned the staff and asked if I could see if it worked. We had a tower on the roof. It did work, and I started my own program. And from that point on, I knew that like broadcasting was going to be something that was part of my life. That's what I was going to do. I was going to be talking for a living. And what made a difference in my life was that the internet was available to me, and I could do something independently without some gatekeeper, I didn't go to college, without college even, and I could have went, and it seemed like a terrible idea to my mother, especially at the time, to not pursue that field because her generation, you go do this and you go do that, and that's the only way that you could possibly make a living for yourself and be successful. And anything else is a pipe dream. This generation up here is black excellence. You're not sitting on this panel if you're black mediocrity. You're not getting invited to have the microphone, right? And it's because we're now of the innovation culture. I think we're now the innovation generation. And in America, I think black people, I won't say are more ambitious, but they're more conscious of the competition and the necessity to overachieve just to get on equal footing. So I had a friend who's very successful also in America, and we had this discussion in Shortage at the Shortage House actually. He was observing just how black people here interact with black Americans, and it felt like, what I'm not hearing today, but it felt like you guys are more comfortable. Like you're more at ease with not having this constant pressure of white people, of your own peers, of will I fail and never be able to achieve or do anything if I'm not absolutely at the top of my field. And it is a very different feeling. You guys feel like you're comfortable. And in the States, we feel like we are constantly under the gun. I'm not saying that's true, but that's what it felt like to us.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to disagree with that. The only reason why I disagree with that is that we haven't had the opportunities. And where in America, obviously, your culture is much, much bigger. You've got a higher percentage of black people out there, first of all. Second of all, just in terms of opportunity, the reason why I wanted to get involved in the industry in the first place is because I've done reality television and I've been the token black person where they gave me this role, and it's all scripted, by the way, where they wanted this out there black woman that's going to have an attitude, this, that, and the third. And unfortunately, me being a novice, I played into that. There's not really been any other shows out there where a black person can actually showcase their talent or showcase what they do and been given an opportunity to actually portray life in a positive light. So I don't think that we are comfortable. I think we know exactly where we stand. The riots will tell us that. But we just have not had the opportunity. So that's the reason why we want to build this platform. We want to build a show where people can actually come in from different walks of life and, you know, like showcase that actually we are out there. We are uncomfortable. We are influential as well, because just like everyone has been saying, we are a very influential culture, like here in the UK. I grew up in France, and I can tell you that even French rappers, some of my friends come from France and they want to go and see where they film Top Boy, for example. That's just to tell you how influential the UK actually is, but it's just lack of opportunity that unfortunately makes you guys think that, oh, these black people in Britain, they're so comfortable, all they do is eat crumpets and drink tea, but that is not the case.
That. I think for a long time, Black British culture was quite conservative. And until Top Boy came on the scene, we weren't really out there like that, right? So Top Boy sort of put us on a map where Americans and Canadians were like, whoa, what's Wagwan? Like, what do you mean by brethren? Like, do you know what I mean? They really tried to be embedded in our culture. And I think now as Black British individuals, we're learning that we need to come together as a community to break the barriers for the international dysphoриas. Like, we have to break barriers by being a community. When we try to individualize ourselves, we're not going to get through those doors. This is a predominantly white industry, yeah? And it's so hard for us. Even on our show, we're trying to portray Black excellence and we're trying to show the triumphs. We're trying to show what it takes to get into these rooms. And it's hard. I've been in the industry for a year and I've seen if you don't have the right people and you know the right people, you ain't getting through that door. So as Black British culture, we need to be a community more than anything. We're a community out on the streets. We're in a community in Notting Hill Carnival. Why can't we be a community in the industry? This is how we break the barriers. This is how we touch international dysphorias.
What I would say about in terms of the in-house competition that sometimes is needed and the collectiveness with breaking barriers as well, sometimes there needs to be interest. One of the most important things if you're trying to break something is, you know, create stars is being spoken about, being written about. If someone says, "Oh, I've done this, I've done that," but if I Google your name or I'm to research, there's not 5 articles on you, then I think there's a lack of interest in you. There's artists that have produced like Shatta Wali, and there's Jamaican artists that probably have more followers. Some of them that probably think they're quite bigger than him as an artist. But this is an artist I've worked with, and I can tell you, there's probably 10,000 different posts that go up every day about him, talking about which song he should next release, who he should do a collab with. There's people tagging producers, tagging myself, tagging other artists. You need to do a song with Shatta Wali, and that's what helps build an industry. And the same rivalry that he's had with Stormboy has helped. You know, when Ghana wasn't being looked at in terms of their production of artists doing African music, dancehall or Afro beats, those that the rivalry between those two is the same thing when recently what was mentioned, Jada Kingdom and Steph London. It's unheard of to hear somebody based in the UK having a lyrical beef with somebody that's based in Jamaica. But because of that interest, it made people start saying, "Oh, now I listen to Steph London. I want to listen to Lady LeSure. I want to listen to these other people that have been mentioned in the clash or in this lyrical beef, because that's what you need. And you can't have one person doing well. You need 3, 4, 5 to create interest in your industry. And I think a lot of the time that's what has hurt British culture, in the sense that there's been a Miss Dynamite, but when she was doing Miss Dynamite and it crossed over, and then there was Craig David with 7 Days, then who else was there at that time? Now you can look and you can think Skepta's known, he's been on Drake's album, Gigs has been on Drake's album. Then you can think about the Stormzy, you can think about Steph London's crossed over, you can say Estelle had a song with Kanye West. Now you think about all these different personals doing it at the same time. It's the reason why Central C can drop a song and he doesn't even need to travel, and he's already making an impact in the American market. And the fact that there's now a platform like Top Boy and other programs where their music is now there and it can marry with a actual story and content. Now these artists have a platform to show, hey, we can do music, and our music's on this TV show, in this movie, and now people are finding interest in our culture and understanding our music, and they want to understand more. So those are all the elements that need to come together to actually make it a thing. And as I said, what you're doing is very good, because it needs commentary, it needs people reviewing, it needs even the gossip, which some people don't think they need, but you actually need all of those elements to actually create stars, in which what builds culture and builds the interest in it, in the industry.
Can I ask the panel a question? Then I'll come to you because I know you haven't had a chance. But when I said that you guys were comfortable, I could see the umbrage that was taken at that. It wasn't meant as like, I wasn't trying to say lazy comfortable. We were sitting there like, are we the weirdos? Like, it felt like, oh, what's it like to just be able to be in your country and chill? Like, feel comfortable in that sense. Not like you're not ambitious, but like you feel less stressed. We constantly feel under the gun. So my question to everybody really is, how do you see American culture, like Black Americans, and the way that we really get on after each other, and what we think is that a lot of our culture is exported around the world. You're talking about having Kanye West and Top Boy getting the eye of the Americans, and then that makes it a conversation. I think that's true. We do have influence and export that kind of attention across the world, but I wonder how you feel about the way we move, basically.
I think it's very different how Americans move to the UK, but I think it also goes back to a point where the UK used to look to places like America for validation, whereas now we don't, because the UK is strong enough on its own to command its own attention, to set its own trends, and have those kind of American artists, creatives, brands wanting to come over to the UK and wanting to replicate the culture that we have here. I think as a people, obviously, there's a lot of things that you take in from the news, from social media, from like the work ethic of Americans, and that obviously comes down to a lot of capitalism. But it's a very different landscape that we have in the UK, and I think because, as I said, the lack of opportunity here, we have to come together as a collective a lot more, and in who you know plays a massive part, because, as I said, you guys can speak to each other if you have problems. If they're to bring in, then you'll be able to do that. If you guys are working with a production company that you know as well as your own. Like you guys can link up and co-produce something, whereas that competitive edge is put to the side a little bit so that more people can win, because we've realised as the generations have come down that there are more opportunities for everyone. Obviously, it's got to be, you know, smart, strategic, and worthwhile, but that the innate feeling of, okay, if I close this door behind me, I'm doing it so no one can come through, is kind of gone now. It's more like, let me hold this door open, and if you're good enough and you're working hard enough and you're on that level, you'll sail through that door, rather than blocking each other's blessings, because it's evident that we're more successful as a collective than as individuals.
Yeah, I agree. You want to add? Yeah, I think like we've kind of saw the limitations that were being put on us, and then we realized we can only get through it together as a team. What I would say is like looking at Americans, I think that you lot are like way more divided than us as a culture. I think that we kind of just come together, even though we're very anti as a people.
Yeah, the UK has got a reputation of bad vibes.
We are very anti as individuals, but I think like in terms of our culture and everything, we're more open. Like we've got somebody who's Turkish next door, someone who's like Pakistan. We're more open to everybody else's cultures, which kind of like feeds into ours. Yeah.
See, when you're talking about that we're comfortable, I feel like obviously as Black people in America, I feel like you fear more attacks from the police, for example, which is things that obviously young people get stopped in search and whatnot, but our police over here don't walk around with guns, for example. So I feel like when we compare with like Black Americans, like the talks I've had with my cousins that live in America, like you guys feel like you're more tougher than us, but that's just because obviously it's a completely different system. We don't necessarily have to worry about children going into a park and being shot by the police, but we also worry about children going into a park and being stabbed by other children. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's completely different.
Like just a stabbing.
I mean,
It's unfortunate, but sometimes that's how society is. There are a lot more stabbings, there's a lot more violence against women and children that's been proactive. There's been some race riots across the UK, down to the far right. There's a lot going on, but we've only got 10 minutes of this panel. We could get into a discussion about race, about
the
culture.
commentary is that I'm here, so that should give you all the indication you need
Yes,
that I
it
respect
definitely
the culture and know that there's something valuable here to have.
Well, that's appreciated, and that's really nice to know that it's respected. We will take any questions if anyone's got any questions for any of our panelists, whether that's about reality TV, entertainment, fashion, music, DJ, culture. If you have got any questions, do put your hands up. But I want to end it on a note of asking about a favourite moment from the culture over the years from each of you. That could be a moment in TV, it could be a moment in music, it could be a moment in fashion, in your entrepreneurs, in the brands that you've worked with, any shifts that you've seen, just a favourite moment of culture.
What that was involved in was Red Bull Culture Clash. So when Popcorn was able to, I'm from the same area as Popcorn, St. Thomas in Jamaica. And when Popcorn finally had his visa to come here, and I mean, that moment when it was him, Spice, Tony Mataron, Cranium on stage, and he played that Drake dub plate in the end when he was being questioned and tortured on stage the whole time. And that moment was one for the culture. I mean, 20,000 people in the O2 Arena for clash culture, which is something that has always been seen as Notting Hill, sound system was an underground thing. And to see so much people involved in that, that was a great night and a great thing for the culture.
For me, it's when I forgot his name again when he won the Oscars from South London.
The director?
The actor.
Okay. Daniel, oh.
Yeah, when you cross over there and he won an Oscar. So that's my favorite moment to show how far we've come.
And for me, I'll say it's when Stormzy headline on Glastonbury.
Yeah.
That was a big moment. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So for me, I would say something really recent, which is Supercell, the release of Supercell. The reason why I would say that is because it really made me excited as like a script writer personally. Like there's spaces for writing and for characters that wasn't there before. Like we said, we did have Top Boy, which kind of opened up everything for him, but they had like the same general like storyline, and they never really show you the whys behind why people are doing these things and whatnot. So I feel with Supercell we have an opportunity to show the whys and to show different characters. You know, we've got the Nikki guy, we've got the funny guy, we've got so many different characters within our culture, and I just think that's just opened up so many ideas for different platforms and different ideas. So I just think that is a really good one for the culture.
I think it was Top Boy for me because like, I've got relatives like in America and France and everything, and when Top Boy came out, like especially the third season, like everyone was like looking forward to the third season. We had people that did not know about London and how people speak in London, you know, copying how people talk in Top Boy and wanted to even visit London just so they could, you know, see what it was filmed. So for me, I feel like that was quite good for the culture.
For me, it's a fashion moment. I think every moment. I was actually there in the culture class. It was a really good one. I think all the moments are valid, but for me, it's a fashion moment that I was involved in when I managed to put the collaboration together with Trapstar and Avrex. I don't know if you guys see it. That was such a big collaboration, which I worked and I did with Mikey, and it just shows because back in the day, Mikey and the guys used to wear Avrex jackets when they were selling their clothing line. So it was just like a big moment, just bringing them together and creating that big collaboration. So that was my moment last December.
I've got a few, but I feel like the most important thing is for me is the fact that there's so many mainstream brands. Like I mentioned earlier on, you've got Havana, we've got Wingstop, you've got Popeyes, you've got all these big brands that are now actually in our community supporting our rappers, our TV shows, our ideas in the community, giving us opportunities. And I feel like, especially with rappers, they don't need to rely on a deal. They can get sponsors now through brands that open up opportunities for them to like exercise their ideas. So I feel like for me, I would say the major brands giving support to the smaller industries has been a big turning point for me.
I would say it was the best in the world. It was the day I became a meme. That was the best and the worst day of culture for me. I don't know. Some of you may remember this till this day. This Deontay Wilder. Yeah.
All right, after this, you have to show us the meme. Wow. And now you've got the creator right here.
The reason that it is good and it was bad at the moment was because the fighter, being Deontay Wilder, was referencing 400 years of oppression and slavery for Black Americans, right? So he was on the stage with a British fighter, Tyson Fury, who was talking about gypsy culture, his personal lineage, having fought for 200 years. So Wilder's like, you know, Caesar Legend was like, fuck that, my people have been fighting for 400 years. But because I was conscious of the global stage, I knew that everybody's just not going to catch that 400-year reference, you know? So I'm tasked with doing the interview when he comes off the stage, and I ask him, you know, what does he mean by his people have been fighting for 400 years? And so he went off, right? As if I didn't know what he was talking about, and because I said his people, it's a whole thing. He'll explain it. So Black people in America especially went nuts on me like I am now like the quintessential Uncle Tom. And it's all over the internet, and it's going crazy. And I was trying to elicit from him the explanation.
You're just doing your job.
Yeah, that first. But then secondly, I was like, this is a great opportunity for him to explain this plight of Black Americans and why that triggered that notion in his mind. And so when I finally did come over across the pond to this side, Black British people were like supporting me and understood what I was doing and was big up at me, and they still scream and shout till this day, every single day since then. It's been like 5 years. somebody shouts that to me in the streets. And what I realized was at the moment it was crisis. It was like, oh my God, the whole world's against me. Rihanna's posted this shit. Like, I'm an Uncle Tom. It's crazy.
Not back, yeah, Riri.
I mean, like, not Riri. And then I realized that, you know what? That brought more attention to what he was talking about, and it actually did what I was hoping it would accomplish, even though I was the punching bag. It got way more attention and made that conversation way more prevalent. Showtime and networks every year when that happens annually, they talk about slavery and the oppression of black people. That doesn't happen if he just answers the question normally. So I accomplished what I wanted, and even though I had to take some hits for it, I was like, that's my greatest moment of like achieving something in one question that really did change the world and brought the culture to bear.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out in the end.
I mean, this guy posted it, so I made
Well,
it.
as I said, we're all going to look at this meme later. I've had such a time on this panel. Have you guys enjoyed? I love that. Please, can you drop your socials so that we can all keep up to date, follow, support, and make sure we hit those buttons, like, comment, subscribe, all of that.
The industry, yeah.
So we got our social media on Instagram, which is the industry, INDASTEE. So it's like a REE. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so that's our collective.
Can you drop yours?
I'm Radio Raheem. It's Radio Raheem on all the platforms. You can find my boxing coverage at Seconds Out on YouTube and The Zone and TNT Sports Broadcasting, all that stuff. Just Radio Raheem.
And at Epic Jones, that's EPIK, so no C, Jones, like keeping up with the Joneses. So Epic Jones, and that's on all social media.
King of Trainers, Franklin, aka King of Trainers. You can Google me. But King of Trainers, don't think JD Sports, think myself. But I work with JD, don't worry. I love them. I work with them. We went for a little legal thing, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
So for my personal one, it's Shivstar, so it's SHIVZSTAR. And then for the business one, it's at beam.ig, so at BEAM.ig.
So guys, obviously our show is not out there yet, but when it comes out, please like and support and comment and share, subscribe. Guys, yeah, you're gonna enjoy it.
You know exactly what to do, and this is how we keep uplifting the culture, by supporting. If you have any questions, I'm sure our panelists will be sticking around for a little bit, but please can you give them a massive round of applause. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys today. My name's Jane McGregor. I've been your host. You can find me on socials at Jane McGregor _ for presenting and voiceover needs. Can you give a massive round of applause for Fortune Favours Productions for putting this all together?
And big up to our hosts.
Big up for Jamie. Clap it up for Jake.
Right, we're going to take a group picture, but don't go anywhere. There's still lots going on the Fortune Favours Productions stage. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
That's great.